Hey, with the stock market looking at new all-time highs as of right now at the time I'm recording this, maybe you're thinking about the next stock you're going to buy. I know I am, right? I'm a professional investor. I am competing in the US Investing Championship. But the OpenAI IPO, there's some bad things coming around it apparently. And this video says why OpenAI's IPO will crash the stock market. I'm very curious to hear why OpenAI's IPO will crash the stock market. Let's watch this together.
Says OpenAI's IPO will create trillionaires, but the truth is far darker. It could destroy your retirement. There's a hidden flaw in their accounting, one that nobody is talking about. Their revenue hit $25 billion in 2026, and they're not done. They want a $750 billion to $1 trillion IPO. That is 30 to 40 times what they actually generate in revenue. Everyone's celebrating like it's a tech gold rush, but this isn't wealth, it's a financial time bomb that could trigger chaos across Wall Street. The OpenAI IPO valuation is the kind of number that breaks every rule for a software company. It only works if they somehow capture the entire global AI market and slash operating costs to almost nothing, which is a long shot when you look at what it actually takes to build and run these systems. Normal software businesses get valued high because they are predictable cash machines with almost no extra cost for each new customer. OpenAI, well, it's the opposite story. There are huge infrastructure bills, massive power and cooling needs, and expenses that grow alongside every user. Investors are being asked to put up enormous money betting everything lines up perfectly in the future, even though the upfront spending and ongoing cash burn are massive. It's bold, but going from today's revenue to $1 trillion, that is a huge leap, the kind that only works on paper. Scaling to that level would require everything to go perfectly, and perfection is rare in tech. Think of it this way. A normal $500,000 house in a quiet suburb sits on a solid foundation with reliable framing, maintenance you can count on, and plumbing that works. Everybody agrees on that price because the structure is proven and reliable. The lot next door, someone's trying to sell a gleaming 100-story glass skyscraper for $8 million. From a distance, it looks impressive, but close up, it's all smoke and mirrors. There's no solid foundation, no steel skeleton anchored to bedrock. Every floor, every pane of glass, every person inside is resting on nothing that could possibly hold it. That is exactly what venture capital is doing with AI. It is holding the whole structure together for now. The crushing load is relentless, a ballooning cost of AI infrastructure. Unlike regular software, AI doesn't ride the zero marginal cost wave.
I don't have any commentary to add to this yet. I'm just interested and curious to see what he says. But, you know, a couple things is that Microsoft owns a fair portion. I don't know how much of it owns. Let's go to Microsoft real quick. Maybe you guys can tell me in the chat. I don't know if they own all of it or just a portion of it. But I mean, Microsoft has been really taking a beating lately. It's finally starting to turn around, right? Maybe it found a bottom right there. But yeah, Microsoft is definitely hurting. So I'm curious to see why one stock going to IPO would crash the entire market. Now, maybe it has something to do with market cap weighting, right? Because first off, it's not going to be in the S&P 500 right away. But even if it does, like several of these companies are over $1 trillion already. So it's not like $1 trillion company is going to do anything. It's just going to slot right in here next to like Tesla, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. Let's keep going though.
Every single time someone types a prompt, real hardware has to spin up and burn through resources.
Which, what would you say your hit rate is using ChatGPT? So ChatGPT is the only one I go to. I've really not experienced much on Gemini or Perplexity or Claude or anything like that. I've heard great things, but I will tell you, about 3 out of 10 times I see the outputs from ChatGPT and I'm like, even I know that that's not correct. I would say 30% of the time I look at it and I literally have that moment of, really? How can you tell me that that is correct? In fact, there's a great YouTube channel. I don't have it in front of me right now, and I don't know how long it'd take for me to find it. In fact, if you know the channel, put it in the chat below. But it's this guy who's in his car and he talks to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT says the most like unhinged stuff possible. He's like, "Hey, I want you to translate something into English." And ChatGPT, it's in the speaking mode. It's like, "Sure, I'll do that." And he says, "Hello, how are you?" And then ChatGPT says, "Hello, how are you?" back. And then the guy says, "What language was that?" And ChatGPT, with no hesitation, complete certainty, says, "That was Portuguese." What? That was only English. No, you spoke Portuguese absolutely flawlessly, and I translated it into English. And it just keeps going like that. It's the way that it's not just wrong, but it's wrong with such certainty and authority that I think really is a big problem. Maybe if it said like 10% confidence, you could look at it a little bit differently. But when it says something with just such conviction, you were speaking Portuguese or whatever the case is, and you know factually it is just not right. I think that's a huge problem. I think that's a giant problem.
Regular Google search or pulling a file from the cloud, it is a cheap database hit, pennies or less. Generative AI is a different beast entirely. When the model cranks out a legal brief or a high-res image, it does way more than fetching pre-existing data. It's actually building something brand new from scratch. And that is the big breakthrough. But now the question is, how well and how far can it go? It's a process that costs far more than humanity is ready for. And that money has to come from somewhere. OpenAI is bleeding cash at a pace that's hard to wrap your head around. Right now, internal numbers show they're set to lose at least $14 billion in 2026 just to keep the lights on and the models running. The latest internal revisions are pushing.
Oh, that's nothing. I mean, if you bought SoFi stock, you probably lost $14 billion as well. If you bought Elf Beauty stock, you probably lost $14 billion as well. If you bought Celsius stock, you probably lost $14 billion as well. If you bought ServiceNow stock, you probably lost $14 billion as well. $14 billion is not that big a deal, right? I mean, let's be realistic here. It's nothing. It's just a drop in the bucket, right? Right.
Pushing that figure toward $25 billion or even higher as they ramp up compute power chasing the next breakthrough. And it doesn't stop there. Annual cash burn could spike to $57 billion in 2027 alone. Add it all up, and cumulative cash burn through 2030 now sits at around $665 billion. That's over $111 billion more than they were forecasting just months ago. The reason? Infrastructure costs exploded way beyond what anyone had planned. Power, custom data centers, endless chip upgrades, every piece costs more than expected. Every single dollar of revenue they're pulling in costs way more to generate. Growth doesn't fix this problem, it makes it worse. More users mean more prompts. More prompts mean more hardware spinning up, and that means bigger losses. It's all baked into the model. To stop the servers from going dark and give themselves 18 to 24 months of breathing room, OpenAI is counting on pulling in up to $60 billion from this IPO, not for world domination or new offices, for life support. If the cash doesn't appear, somebody has to write a check. So why would Wall Street willingly drain its own accounts to feed the machine? They know the burn numbers, they see the red ink piling up, yet the plan is still to hand over $100 billion like it's no big deal. The stock market is basically a closed plumbing system. There's only so much money actually moving around in stocks, bonds, mutual...
I don't know about that. In fact, I would say that's quite the opposite. And I don't know how much this channel knows about the market. But the market is not a closed loop system at all. In fact, let me ask you, answer in the chat. Let's say that this is you, right? Let's draw a little you right here, right? We're all dudes, right? There's only 8% of our audience is female. So this is you, right? Did you one time ever put money into the stock market and then it stayed a closed loop? No, of course not, right? A lot of people invest. In fact, we just got the stat earlier this week, $4.4 billion goes into the stock market every day. This is not a closed loop at all because there's people investing in it all the time. And then there's boomers over here, right, in their wheelchairs who are like, it's the end over here and I need to take out as much as I can, right? And so they're on the other side and they're taking distributions all the time out of the stock market. This is not a closed loop at all. I may rage quit this video. We'll see.
Funds, pension accounts, and cash piles. The total amount doesn't magically grow just because someone wants more. Every dollar flowing into OpenAI shares comes from somewhere else. When they pull massive sums quickly, everything downstream starts to starve.
I may rage quit this video because, like, legitimately, what he's saying is, let's say that Google is OpenAI. Okay, the theory that I'm hearing, unless I'm mistaken, is let's say this is OpenAI, right? Let's just do OAI. Okay, what he's saying is everybody who's in these stocks over here and these stocks down here and these stocks over here, the only way that this gets bigger is to take pieces from every other stock. That is 100% not the truth. I don't know how much longer I'll make this. Let's keep going.
Buyers who can actually write a $100 billion check aren't small-time traders or retail folks on apps. They are the giants. Sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East, government pension plans, the biggest mutual funds and endowments on the planet. They don't sit on piles of cash. Idle money loses value to inflation. Every dollar has to stay fully invested according to strict rules. To buy into the OpenAI IPO, these funds have to free up cash. They start with the assets that are the easiest to move without creating chaos, like Apple. Apple stock is super liquid with millions of shares trading every day, so the funds sell huge blocks and the price starts sliding almost immediately. They do the same with other stocks like Tesla.
Yeah, I'm not going down this video. I don't think that this person actually knows what they're talking about. Now, granted, amazing graphics, but I'll be very honest with you. It's actually giving me a little bit of motion sickness because there's so much motion going on with this. I don't. What do I think? I don't know. I'm just a ram guy on the internet. I mean, that person has way more subscribers than I, so his opinion is way more valuable than mine, right? That's how the YouTube works, right? If you have more subscribers, then your opinion is more better, right? Yes, I do agree that a lot of those funds or whatever have to stay invested into these stocks or bonds or gold or anything else. So if they're going to go into OpenAI, then everything else is going to go down and it's going to cause the crash. What a logical fallacy that is. That is pretty awful, honestly. That's not how the market works, right? People are constantly adding more and more money into the market. People are constantly pulling out money from the market. In fact, I wonder if there's a money supply chart. Let me Google this up real quick. Money supply chart. The Fed money supply. Let's see if this is what I want. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. The money supply, right? More money in the system is more upper. Okay. That's how this looks. Imagine this money's going into the stock market. Okay. In 1980, there was only so much. In 2000, there was only so much. 2015, there was only so much. Now, this is also a chart of inflation, you can imagine. This is not a closed loop system. It's consistently more money chasing the same stocks. So to say that everybody's going to have everything pulled out and go into one stock is so juvenile. I don't think you understand how the market works. Now, if this were a closed system and there was only a certain amount of money that was in the market, then it would all go to one spot. I could see that. But that's not the case. And in fact, if that were the case, then the market would not change 1 cent. The market would remain exactly the same. Because if it's the same dollars and it goes to one stock, it is equivalent to the same dollars going to all these stocks. This, unfortunately, was a huge waste of time. Yeah, I'm very disappointed by this video. Why OpenAI's IPO will crash the stock market? It's not. It's not going to crash the stock market. I don't know what's going to crash the stock market because I'm not one of those jackwagons who say that they know the future. And anybody who's on YouTube who tells you that they know the future doesn't know their elbow from their asshole. I said a bad word. Don't tell grandpa. All right, that's going to wrap it for this video. Quite disappointed by it, but maybe you got some use out of this, right? And if you're ready to save time, make money, and start winning with less risk, go ahead and subscribe. Subscribe. We're almost to 50,000. We need you to subscribe and click one of these 2 videos. And we'll talk soon.